Are you drowning in client work, missing calls, or getting stuck doing administrative tasks instead of lawyering and running your law firm? That might be a sign as to time to bring in some help in your firm. Let's go over the key signs that it is time for you to hire help and some practical next steps on how to do so. Now, what happens if you hire too late or if you hire too early? It's about finding that kind of right time to hire. Now, when you've hired too late, you're already at the point of burnout. Maybe you're missing deadlines. Maybe you have some unhappy clients, right? Those are all things that we don't want. And those are very clear signs that you've waited too long to hire some help in your law firm. If you hire too early, you're at a high risk of having a financial strain on your law firm if you don't have the revenue coming in yet to really support bringing someone on board. So the goal here is to really find that sweet spot where hiring support actually, helps you with the growth of your firm. And we want to do so in a way that's not going to break the bank. So what are some key signs that it's time to hire? I think I've got about 5 different points here where it's time for you to bring in some help. Now, again, with the admin work, you're missing calls, you're not replying to emails timely, maybe some leads are slipping through the cracks, you're not following up with, inquiries to your website or calls to your office. And if you're losing those opportunities, you are losing revenue in your law firm, right? You're costing your firm money by not investing in growth and support in your law firm. Or maybe, next point, you're working nights, you're working weekends, you're having just exhaustion with your law firm. You don't actually have time to think about the running of the business of your law firm because you're just too caught up in the day-to-day, again, admin tasks and the lawyering. Like, you don't have time to be the business owner, but we need you to be a business owner first, lawyer second, right? And if you're so busy in the firm and you haven't brought on help that you're not focusing on being a business owner and you're just too busy with the lawyering and admin work, that's a clear sign to me that we need to get you some help in your firm, because this is not why you went solo. No matter who you are or why you went solo, part of why you did so was for the freedom, right? For time and for flexibility. And we can't have you chained to your desk all the time because you don't have help in your law firm. Point number 3. If doing the admin work is really consuming most of your day, if you are spending far too many hours on doing the scheduling and the billing and the filing and scanning of documents, right? Like, things that are not the highest and best use of your time. If you are doing a lot of admin work, we probably need to get you some kind of admin support. And you can do so in so many ways now, right? With a virtual assistant or with the receptionist to help with the phones. Or maybe you actually need a paralegal to help with some of this lawyering work so you can actually be a business owner in your own law firm. Point number 4 as to when it may be time for you to bring on some help is if you're noticing that the customer service experience for your clients is really slipping, right? If you're rushing through communication with your clients, if you are missing your own deadlines that you set for yourself to deliver documents to clients, right? If your reputation is maybe suffering because you're not getting quality work completed in a timely manner, might be time to bring on some help. And then also another point 5 as to when it's time to bring in help is when you are having consistent revenue. When you're first starting out, revenue can kind of be a roller coaster, right? And some months are great, some months are slow. But if you're finding that revenue is more consistent, you're having continued growth, and you're able to kind of project what the next few months will look like for your revenue, it's probably time to invest in some help in your firm. Hiring some support in your firm, no matter what it is, if it's, again, virtual receptionist, virtual assistant, paralegal, this is a strategic investment in your law firm, and it's not as much of a gamble or a risk once we have that continued revenue growth in your law firm. It's a growth strategy, not just for your law firm, but also for you to help you fulfill whatever your dreams and goals were in being a law firm owner. We always have, revenue is a goal and the income for the individual law firm owner is a goal. Also, your time, again, flexibility is a goal. And so we want to make sure that we're achieving those goals for you and getting you some of your time back by hiring smartly with some support. So, talking about hiring support, let's talk about your first few hires in your law firm, okay? So, one of the first hires you're probably looking at is a receptionist, a virtual receptionist, or a virtual assistant to help you with admin and intake and managing the phones and emails with clients. And a lot of times you're doing this on a part time basis. It doesn't have to be a full time, 40-hour a week W 2 employee. There can be situations and different ways to structure it so that they're a 1099, like virtual assistant, that they have their own business. Now, sometimes a question can be is how do I know if I'm ready to bring on some kind of support, whether part-time, virtual, or in person? How much money should I be making? I generally like to see around $14,000 to $15,000 a month in revenue before you are hiring any kind of part-time support in your law firm. And it can be as little as 8 to 10 hours a week to start, right? And so usually 14 to 15,000 a month is where I like to see my solos before they start bringing on some support. So that's going to be pushing, getting close to, 200 a year, right? So 175, 180 a year, somewhere in that range is what I like to see you hitting before bringing on some kind of virtual support in your law firm. Also, another key initial first hire is going to be your bookkeeper to handle your books, your CPA for your taxes. And for a lot of my law firm owners, they are doing these tasks themselves, but they are not qualified to do so. And also is, again, not the best use of their time. They are better off being able to bill an extra hour or two a month to pay for someone to do their books for them, to do their quarterly state, tax filings for them, and to do their 940, 941 filings, and to do their annual tax return filings. Like, you can bill an extra hour or two a month to pay for those things and not do those yourself. And yes, I understand that paying for a CPA is going to be an added expense. But what's the cost to you if you do it wrong? Or what about if your CPA can save you thousands of dollars in taxes by, doing something that you didn't know about because you are not a CPA, right? That's not your primary area of practice. Now, some of my law firm owners, they do tax work and they are very qualified to be able to handle their own books and do their own taxes. That's great. I'm not one of those lawyers. So that was one of my first hires when I went solo, was somebody doing my books for me, somebody doing my taxes for me. That was not my primary skill set, and that was not the best use of my time to try and figure those things out. So make sure that if you need to do so, that you are investing in that bookkeeper and that CPA to get that done for you correctly. Now, also, one of your other first hires, and these are all kind of like a list of different types of first hires. Some things may be better for some of you and some things may be better for others, whether it's a receptionist or a virtual assistant or a paralegal. It's going to be depending on what your needs are and, again, the best use of your time. So we're kind of going over what all these options could look like. So let's talk about paralegal support, right? Especially if you have like a more of a litigation type practice, if you're doing PI, if you're doing family law, you may find that you're really getting bogged down in the lawyering and you need some more time to actually run the business of your law firm. So that may be where you need some paralegal support, right? And so make sure that when you're deciding between what type of help that you need, that you are clear on what you need help with. If you need help with more admin tasks, you may not need a paralegal to do the admin tasks. And a paralegal is going to cost you more, right, than having someone doing admin tasks for you. If you actually need paralegal support, if you need legal work to get done by a paralegal, then you should not be hiring maybe a virtual assistant if you actually need a paralegal. Now, you also can get a remote paralegal, right? Someone virtual, someone part-time. Maybe you're sharing a paralegal with another law firm, right? And you don't have 40 hours worth of work for that paralegal. Maybe you have 20 hours worth of work for a paralegal. So ensuring that you're very clear on what you need. When I work with law firm owners, sometimes they just want to hire someone, but they don't know exactly what they need help with. They know they're busy, they know they're buried in work, but they haven't clearly identified what they need help with. So when you are deciding who you need to hire first. Make sure you're focusing on where you need to free up your time, the highest and best use of your time, so that you can focus on running your business, which means bringing in revenue, closing sales. So how are we going to free up more time for you to be able to bring more revenue in the door? And that's where your first hire needs to be for your law firm. So maybe you've decided, okay, I know what I need help with. I know what tasks I need to get done. I know who I need to hire. So let's go over what you should be doing when it is time for you to hire someone. You need to make sure that you are documenting the processes in your law firm. Having systems in your law firm is so critical to make onboarding smoother and easier for you, easier for that new hire when it comes time for them to come on board in your law firm. If you've already documented, either on paper with checklists or timelines and instructions on how to answer the phone and how to scan files, or maybe you've made video recordings on how you file pleadings in courts and how you do different things in different, whatever your courts are that you practice in, right? If you have documented those processes and procedures, it's so much easier to onboard your new hire for them to be able to kind of help themselves to figure out how to do things and how you want things done in your law firm. So make sure you have documented processes and procedures in your law firm before you bring someone on board. Again, start with someone part-time. Your first hire does not need to be a full-time 40-hour-a-week W-2 employee. There are so many other options nowadays for bringing help on. So your first hire as a solo should probably be someone part-time, not full-time. So become more clear on what you need, how many hours of support do you actually need before you actually make that first hire, and to help keep your costs down. And also remember that this is an investment in your law firm and to the future growth of your law firm and generating more revenue for your law firm. This is not just an added expense for your monthly overhead. We're actually investing in the growth of your law firm. So let's wrap this up. If you are feeling overwhelmed in your law firm, you know you need help, but you don't know where to start, you might be losing leads, maybe customer service is slipping at your firm, it's time to hire help. Hiring help is something that can be difficult to do, can be I don't know if it's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a big expense to take on. But it's going to be one of your first biggest investments in your law firm is bringing on that help. And again, it's going to allow you to create more revenue for your law firm and that growth that you want for your law firm. So I hope this helps. We've talked about in a lot of different videos about how to onboard new hires, how to grow, how to increase revenue in your law firm. So make sure you check those out. If you're in this kind of position in your law firm and need to kind of take that next step to kind of step things up with the revenue and the help in your firm. So I hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next one. All right.